Hello, welcome. I'm so excited to be here with you today. I have been doing some surveying of people who get my newsletter to talk about what kind of felt concerning to people as you did your taxes. And I want to share just a little bit of the results of that survey that I've had. This was just a couple questions, and it was basically like, how did you feel? How did you feel after you filed your taxes? So it's pretty interesting. Based on the responses that I got, 30% of people, the number one concern was, I'm worried I did something wrong. That's pretty interesting to me. Interestingly, not too far behind that was everything was great, no complaints. So that's kind of an interesting contrast. 27% of people said I didn't understand my taxes. And an equal 27% of respondents said my taxes were higher than I expected. So I just find that kind of interesting. I will be bringing the results of those surveys into future episodes of the Sunlight Podcast. So if you were one of those lovely people who responded, thank you so much. I'm going to send the link out. If you're on my newsletter, you will see that survey going out again, so I can gather more data from it. But again, I really do love to see what's on your mind so I can make this podcast as strong as it can be to help serve you where you're at. All right, so today on the podcast, I want to talk about a post-tax day thing you might be feeling and how to learn from, if you felt any pain as you filed your taxes this year, I want to help you capitalize on that pain, make it do good for you in the upcoming year, and never feel that pain again. All right. Pain exists to teach us, right? This is sort of the biological truth of pain. Nature is not cruel. Pain is generally there to say, don't do that again, right? Your toddler knows that touching the stove is going to cause pain, and they do it once and then they will never do it again. Same is true if you get audited. You will never do whatever it was that caused that audit again because of that pain, generally speaking. So a really common type of pain I see self-employed people experience when it comes to tax day, right? Tax day is the date that your tax is due, that you have to pay. It's the payment deadline. A common piece of pain that I see is people are like, oh shit, why were my taxes so high? And there's often an unexpected cash flow crunch on April 15th. So I want to talk about, I've talked about this before, but there is a triple deadline that happens on tax day on April 15th. And I want to remind you what that is. And because tax day is not that far in our past right now, you probably felt this pretty recently. So here's what the triple deadline means when I'm talking about that. 3 different cash deadlines all converge on one day, tax day, April 15th, typically. So number one, the biggie, your tax bill is due. So any unpaid tax from the prior year has to get settled up by tax day, April 15th, right? That is the nature of our tax filing. When you file taxes, you are reconciling the amount of tax you paid in already in the prior year. And hopefully the whole system is set up that hopefully you've done most of it already. And then you determine, based on different credits, dependents that you have, deductions that you might have, your actual bookkeeping versus projected, you determine how much you actually owed, right? So you take how much you've paid in already and you compare it to how much you owed. And hopefully those numbers are pretty close together, right? That's the goal, but sometimes they're not. Right? If you overpaid, that's the good scenario, then you get a refund of whatever overpayment amount you had, or you can get your overpayment applied to next year's quarterly tax payments. If you underpaid, this is the bad scenario, right? This is where you owe money. Hopefully that is not a lot of money. Hopefully it's just a little bit, right? That is, again, the goal. But unfortunately, for self-employed people, if you're making your income from your own work independently, you don't have a payroll system withholding your taxes as you go, the way any W-2 employee does. And if you have not gotten on top of estimated quarterly taxes yet, and you didn't know that you need to be paying quarterly taxes throughout the year to stay on top of your tax bill, what can happen to you is you get hit with a massive full annual tax bill all at one time. And owing your whole tax amount for the entire year at one time on one day is super painful. It's super painful. To be honest, it is something I see over and over and over again because the tax education in this country is so non-existent. It's why I developed my program, Money Bootcamp. It is to help you understand how that works and manage it through paying quarterly taxes, through bookkeeping, through kind of knowing what your profit is all the time, right? But what I see is that a lot of people get into this pain. They experience this pain, and that is how they learn, oh, that's what quarterly taxes are for, right? Okay, so it's sometimes, in fact, it often sneaks up on people. People learn about quarterly taxes because they get faced with an awful, crippling tax bill, and then retroactively, they learn what they should have done to have fixed it. Now, I'm not here to cast any blame. There's a sorry state of tax education in this country, and you didn't know. I didn't know when I started my life as a full-time artist, right? So I also learned the hard way, but I'm here compassionately to tell you there is a way to fix it and you can do it. So your tax bill is due. That's number one. It's the settle up amount from last year's taxes. But also number two, on tax day, it's the first quarterly tax payment deadline as well. So these are two separate payments, okay? And number three, April 15th is also the deadline for putting money into your IRA. So we want you to put money into your IRA. Good personal finance, the sort of one of the principles of good personal finance is pay yourself first. Well, how do you pay yourself first? You make sure that your retirement fund, which I like to call your fuck you money, is fully funded, right? You want that fully funded, and then you want to prioritize all the other things in your life. That's what I mean when I say pay yourself first. However, most people start out doing it backwards. You owe your tax bill. You're like, oh shit, I need to also scrape together my first quarterly tax payment. And now all your cash is gone. So who gets screwed in this scenario? Who does not get paid? It's you. You, if you leave paying yourself till last, you won't ever fund your retirement. You will never build your FU money. And of course, that's one of my secret projects in the world, is to get women, non-binary folks, historically marginalized people, BIPOC, to be funding their fuck you money, because I want you to have economic power and agency and the ability to rest and recharge and do amazing work, right? So paying yourself first is a big deal. You got to do it. I want you to do it. So when these three deadlines all converge at one time, often what happens is you don't get paid. You pay the tax man, and then your IRA is the thing that suffers. Now, this can be really painful. It's not fun. And I know that this may be a subject you want to avoid, but before you put this away, I want to teach you how to make it better, okay? That's what we're going to focus on today in today's episode. So how can you make this better, all right? All right, well, if this happened to you this year, take heart. It really does often take some painful experience to get this right, but here's the good news. This same thing is true, not just this year, but every year. So you can predict this next year. You now know that this is coming, right? So you don't want to just forget about it because, and I've seen this many times in my tax practice, people get stuck in a cycle where they have this painful experience and they get through it somehow, and then they put it away and they don't want to think about it because they feel traumatized, right? And so then you don't actually fix the underlying problem, and it's just there for you to bite you again next year. Okay, so let's not do that. All right. So right now, you can put in place your plan to make sure that this time next year, you keep future you on top of your priority list. In other words, we want to make sure that this time next year, you have paid yourself first, okay? All right, so here are my tips for doing that. Number one, set up the infrastructure. All right. So hopefully you already have an IRA. I don't even care if it's Roth or traditional. You can go back to one of the early Sunlight episodes to hear my opinions about whether you should use a Roth or traditional IRA, but I'll summarize it for you here. It doesn't matter. Just pick one. I mean, you can fuss about the details, but I think the much larger question is, are you maxing out one of them? If you are, okay, now you can get fussy about the details. If you're using that as an excuse to not open an IRA, okay, then it doesn't matter and just pick one. All right. So what I want you to do, make sure that you have an IRA opened. This is a very simple process. It is a 10-minute phone call to a bank or brokerage. I use Fidelity. I also recommend Vanguard because they have very, very low fees. You can use, Charles Schwab, JP Morgan Chase. There's a whole bunch of brokerages out there. Okay. So you call one up, you open an IRA, either Roth or traditional. Yes, you will have to make that decision. And what I want you to do is I want you to know that the limit for what you can put into a traditional or Roth IRA for the upcoming year, for tax year 2023, is going up a little bit. It's $6,500. Okay. That breaks down to about $125 per week. So in your head now, I want you to start to think about that. Think about budgeting that. If you haven't been doing this since January 1st, it's of course going to be more than $125 per week because we're already more than a quarter of the way into the year. So you're going to bump that up by more than 25%. But that said, $125 a week over your lifetime, that's kind of a baseline. All right. Now, do not turn your back on this if you don't have that amount of money. Okay. Instead, here's what I want you to do. Set up an auto draft of any amount per week that you can afford. Now, if you can afford the full amount, set it up for 125 or even a little bit more if you got started late in the year. Just know that you have to stop when you get to $6,500. You cannot over contribute in a calendar year to your IRA. Okay. So you're either going to you're going to basically set up an auto draft of the maximum amount that you can put into that IRA. You're going to be taking it from your savings account and auto drafting it into that IRA. You can do any amount, and I don't care how small that amount is. If you're saying like, I can't afford anything at all, do $5. Okay. $5 per week. Now, I know that's not going to add up to a ton, but the reason is you can easily change the amount of the auto draft. And I'm going to give you a tip on that in a second too. You can change the amount that is auto drafted into that account. If you get a grant, if you get a raise, if you get a big tax refund next year. But the goal here is to set up the infrastructure and automate it so that you don't waste energy negotiating with yourself over whether, when, and how much you're going to put in to your IRA this year, right? So what is better than zero savings, zero fuck you money? Any fuck you money at all, right? So $5 a week is going to be way, way better than doing nothing, right? This is why $5 is awesome. If you can do $5 a week, do it. You can do more, do more. All right. Number 2, after you set up that infrastructure, and that's the big one. It's the big one, but it only takes 15 minutes of phone calling to your bank, honestly. All right. So number 2, schedule time on your calendar to revisit your auto draft amount, right? So we do want to set it and forget it, but we want to have stuff on our calendar where we check back in. Okay. So do you have an annual review or bonus at your workplace? Is there a time of year you tend to have more cash? Maybe you often get a tax refund. So after tax day is actually the perfect time for you. Maybe it's around the holidays. Maybe you have relatives who write you checks or your birthday, maybe. Think of a time of year when you tend to have a little more money, okay, more cash. Right after that is a good time to have this calendar alarm for you to revisit that auto draft amount. Go ahead right now. I'll wait. And put that on your calendar right now. Okay. Now, the next thing I want you to do is schedule a 6-month and a 1-year check-in. on your personal finance goals, okay? Your financial picture will continue to shift and change, right? The economy may change, your business may change, your work may change, your life may change, right? You might have a baby, you could get sick. Things happen where things go up and down in your income. So periodically checking in, I think about every 6 months, can really help you adjust the amounts that you are saving, right? Maybe today you are feeling very cash poor because you just had that massive unexpected tax cash flow crunch that I was describing. But maybe in 6 months, your business will take off. You will learn how to launch successfully. Your online course will get really popular. Whatever it is, you may get that bonus or get that grant, right? So every 6 months, if you're checking in, I want you to look back at that auto draft amount to your IRA and tune it up. And I also want to tell you that if you are on the other end where $6,500 isn't going to get you to retirement, whether that's because you're getting a late start, which, many people do. Don't feel too terrible about it. Just start now. I just want you to know that there are brand new rules that increase the catch-up contributions that people over 50 are allowed to make because of the Secure 2.0 Act that got passed recently by the Democratic Congress. So that's really good news. It also really helps, there's a lot of helpful stuff in there to help you access the money in a case of an emergency. So it's really, really good news for anybody who's trying to build their fuck you money. But also, just generally speaking, there are other accounts like solo 401ks and SEP IRAs where you can make massive contributions, right? You can contribute way more than $6,500 per year. And of course, in my program, Money Bootcamp, I have a whole module where I teach about what those different tax advantaged accounts are, how to use them, what the deadlines are, and some strategy around using this one first versus this one. Okay. So I want you to know that there are higher levels that you can get to in setting aside fuck you money. And the Secure 2.0 Act gives you a boost on even those things as well. All right, so to review, there is a massive cash flow crunch that happens on tax day, April 15th. You have your tax from last year due. You have your first estimated quarterly tax payment due, and it's also your deadline to fund your IRA, Roth or traditional, okay? And generally speaking, you want to prioritize funding your IRA ahead of time. Make it a priority, because if it's not a priority, it isn't going to happen. You're the one who's going to suffer because you're going to pay the IRS because they're scary, right? So you want to make sure that to keep paying yourself a priority, to keep that investment in yourself, in your fuck you money, going strong, you need to know that this triple deadline is coming, not just this year, but every year. So use that pain. If you just felt pain as you filed your taxes, as you paid your taxes, use that pain to set these dates on your calendar, to call the brokerage and open that IRA, and to get something auto drafted in there on a monthly basis so that you are building something in there, right? You're setting up the pipes into that account. I don't care how tiny the contribution is, but 6 months from now, a year from now, 18 months from now, I want you continually making a habit of checking in on how much is going in through that pipe. Once you have that infrastructure in place, it becomes easy to turn the dial and just make that quick, log into your bank and just increase that auto draft amount. And that, my friends, that is how you develop a habit to grow your wealth and to pay yourself first. All right, I hope this has been really helpful for you. I'm so excited. It's such a mission of mine to make sure that people like you are building FU money, right? So you can grow your practice, focus on the work you want, so you can rest and so you can empower in the world. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and I hope you use it. Send me a message if you do. I'd love to hear it, because this is the thing that gets me excited, gets me up in the morning, knowing that I have helped somebody put some money in for their own financial security. Now, speaking of financial security, I am hosting a special free class that I want you to know about. So you are invited to join me. It's called How to Thrive in a Recession When You're Self-Employed. I've hosted this class before last summer. I'm going to do it again. And the reason is that, I know with these bank failures and interest rates going up, it kind of feels like we might be on the edge of a recession. Are we, aren't we? Doesn't really actually matter if we are, but in a scenario of financial insecurity or potential recession, I want you to know some basic personal finance information that will help you make the most of a recession, how to thrive. Okay. I'm going to be hosting this class live on May 18th, Thursday, May 18th at noon, East Coast time. You need to register to join, but it's free. And if you can't make that time, I will send you the recording. It's only going to be an hour. So you can do it at lunchtime if you're on the East Coast, or breakfast time if you're not. I'm going to be covering emergency savings, personal finance basics, how to adjust your quarterly tax payments. This is a huge piece of power you have when you make income yourself, not just using the defaults for your quarterly tax payments, but actually knowing the rules so that you can adjust them to be closer to your actual cash in hand is a huge source of power for you. So I want you to understand those rules. I'm going to teach you about some basic investing principles, how not to panic, how to get started with investing, some hidden opportunities that lie in plain sight during a recession. And I'm also going to talk to you about why feelings matter. It's kind of funny, but actually, women have been proven in study after study after study to be better investors, more long-term oriented, to do less emotion-based trading. And I'm going to talk about that because I think a lot of women have been sold, a bad line that we're not good at investing. And actually, the data is very clear that women are excellent investors, and feelings are a part of it. So I'm going to talk about that. So basically, we're going to be talking about the opportunities that are hiding for you in a recession. This is actually really good news, and it's going to make you feel like you have more power than maybe you realized you did. So it's an awesome class. It was very popular last year. I'm offering it again. It's free, but you need to register. You can register at go.sunlighttax.com/recession. So once again, that's go.sunlighttax.com/recession. It's open to everyone. Feel free to share it with your friends. And I will see you live in class Thursday, May 18th. All right. Thanks for listening today, everybody. See ya.